Episode 2 of House of the Dragon Season 2 has been released by HBO, and it's another gripping episode for the Game of Thrones prequel show. It's an installment that shows fractures within both Team Black and Team Green, and continues to build on the heat of a civil war. So in this explained analysis, I'm going to be giving you my breakdown and review of House of the Dragon Season 2 Episode 2, discussing plot details and the ending. There will be spoilers in this video, so if you haven't watched the episode yet, then I would recommend checking it out before watching my analysis. Before I get into it though, if you want to see more on House of the Dragon and the Game of Thrones spin-off shows, then don't forget to support this upload by giving it a like, rating, and subscribing to the channel. But without further ado, let's dive into my explained video for House of the Dragon Season 2 Episode 2. So House of the Dragon Season 2 didn't hesitate to dive right into a brutal act of cruel bloodshed. While the Blood and Cheese storyline from George R.R. Martin's Fire and Blood may have been more graphic in the book, the consequences of Prince Jaehaerys' murder are already being felt. It's clear that both sides in this civil war will experience even greater losses before it's all said and done. In the opening of episode 2, guards are frantically rounding up everyone in the Red Keep, desperately trying to catch the killers of Jaehaerys before they can escape. The atmosphere in the castle is filled with exhaustion and sorrow, especially for King Aegon. It was surprising to witness the extent of Aegon's distress, as in one scene we witnessed the destruction of decades of King Viserys' meticulous model of King's Landing as he recklessly smashes it with a fireplace poker. However, as the episode comes to a close, Aegon becomes more vulnerable and sincere in another scene. We see him sobbing into his own hands, and we see that his anger and outrage have been drained. And Aegon isn't the only one affected by the tragic events, as Alicent too is visibly shaken by the beheading of her baby grandson. In the previous episode, her guilt had already begun to weigh on her conscience when she made a feeble attempt to end her affair with Criston Cole. Now her remorse is intensified by the realization that the Lord Commander of the Kingsguard was in bed with her instead of protecting the family. Meanwhile, Otto remains oblivious to his daughter's torment as he focuses on strategizing how to turn their losses into advantages. And so we find ourselves at the latest council meeting where the consequences of these tumultuous events are set to unfold. There, Aegon is worried that the crime will expose his vulnerability as a ruler, but also views it as an opportunity to reshape this story. The commoners witnessed Rhaenyr's betrayal during Aegon's coronation, so they already perceive his grandson as feeble. However, this is a moment to reveal Rhaenyra's ruthless desperation. Otto proposes a grand state funeral starting from the Red Keep and ending at the Dragon Pit. Instead of just stating that the Black Queen is a murderer, let's make the people see the sorrow of Alicent and Helaena, who will be pulled in a cart behind the young heir. Furthermore, neither of the individuals responsible for the prince's brutal murder manages to escape the consequences. The tense atmosphere during the meeting is abruptly interrupted by Sir Larys Strong, who reveals that a gold cloak has been apprehended at the city gates, carrying the severed head of Jaehaerys in a sack. So as preparations are made for the prince's solemn procession, Larys discreetly oversees the interrogation of the culprit. The sight of gruesome torture instruments laid out before him compels the Ratcatcher to confess, revealing that it was Daemon Targaryen who hired him. But any hopes for leniency are thrown aside when Aegon enters the cell and takes matters into his own hands, killing the Blood of Blood and Cheese. The funeral procession is then put in full swing, and unfortunately, it's quite a somber affair. Alicent and Queen Helaena are following behind Jaehaerys' body as per Otto's instructions to garner public sympathy. Jaehaerys appears pale in the carriage, with the stitches holding his head in place purposely visible to all. And if that wasn't dramatic enough, a town crier accompanies the carriage, loudly proclaiming, "Witness the atrocities of Rhaenyra, corrupter of the innocent." When a pothole causes the wagon to jolt to a stop, Helaena is quickly overwhelmed by the crowd, pushing forward to offer their condolences, while Alicent struggles to prevent her daughter from fleeing in distress. It's true that in episode 2, the Greens are grappling with the consequences of their actions, particularly with Sir Criston Cole. He and Alicent were together that night, but they can't admit it without exposing their affair. Criston himself feels a deep sense of guilt and believes there's no redemption for what they've done, but he eventually directs his misplaced anger towards Sir Arryk, blaming him for the mess they're in. I have to admit, while the guards were busy entertaining the king that night, I did think it was a bit silly that there was no one around to try and stop the killing from happening. Still, I guess that in this episode, they did try to use that as a redeeming plot point. And as Cole and Arryk's conversation escalates, we learn that the Lord Commander orders Arryk to go to Dragonstone and pose as his treacherous twin to assassinate Rhaenyra and prove his loyalty. Another member of House Green who is also grappling with their actions is Aemond. He realises that he was the intended target of Daemon's assassination plot and admits to Sylvie, a brothel worker, that he regrets what happened with Lucerys. His anger got the best of him and his nephew paid the ultimate price. Sylvie doesn't sugarcoat the truth and reminds him that when princes lose their temper, it's the common people who suffer. So as a whole, this civil war has far-reaching consequences, and it's important to reflect on the true cost of it all, which I'm sure will link into what goes down beyond episode 2. And back over on Dragonstone, we begin to see what fractures have been caused for Team Black. Rhaenyra couldn't believe the news of Jaehaerys' death and the shocking accusation that she had a hand in it. As a grieving mother, seeking revenge on a child was the last thing on her mind. But when she laid eyes on Daemon, everything became clear. She knew he was the one truly responsible for these actions in her name, regardless of it being another accident. Behind closed doors, Rhaenyra confronts her husband, demanding the truth. Daemon tries to defend himself, claiming he had given clear instructions to the hired killers. In response, Rhaenyra is understandably furious, and Daemon's scheme had not only weakened her claim to the throne, but also damaged her relationships with valuable allies and even her own council. But the conversation took a sudden turn as buried truths came to light between the two. Rhaenyra admits to keeping Daemon at arm's length, questioning his motives and intentions, and then fear flashes into Rhaenyra's eyes as Daemon's temper flares, reminiscent of a past argument. Despite Daemon's attempts to evade the real issue, the lack of trust between them is palpable, and so Daemon departs on Caraxes, and it ultimately leaves Rhaenyra uncertain of his return. After Daemon leaves though, Rhaenyra calls upon Mysaria to delve into her knowledge of the assassination plot. Their conversation takes an unexpected turn as they begin to discuss their understanding of Daemon's true nature. Rhaenyra is taken aback when she realises that the woman standing before her is the same person Daemon once intended to marry during his rebellious outburst in season 1. And despite their different upbringings, their stories are remarkably similar. They are both women who will always face rejection from the men around them, no matter how hard they strive for power. In the end, Rhaenyra agrees to honour the agreement Daemon made with Mysaria, granting her passage on a ship bound for Myr. But as Mysaria is escorted to the harbour, she notices a man who bears a striking resemblance to one of Rhaenyra's loyal Queensguard members making his way up from the beach towards Dragonstone. This is Sir Arryk, and his twin brother was just in the cell where Mysaria's conversation with Rhaenyra began, which in turn makes her feel like something is about to happen. And she's right, because Sir Criston Cole's planned plot to send Arryk to kill Rhaenyra is about to come into focus. Arryk confidently dons his helmet and takes advantage of Sir Erryk still being clad in the same armour while serving Rhaenyra. He effortlessly strides into Dragonstone, replacing Sir Lawrence Marbrand at the post guarding Rhaenyra's bedchamber. And after discreetly securing the exits, Arryk heads straight for Rhaenyra, his path unhindered as he enters her chamber. The Queen's initial confusion fades quickly as Arryk unsheathes his sword. However, the tension escalates when Erryk suddenly appears, wielding his own blade, reluctantly preparing to face his brother. As the two identical twins move closer, distinguishing between the loyal knight and the potential assassin becomes increasingly challenging. Erryk positions himself between Arryk and Rhaenyra, intercepting his brother's sword. While safeguarding Rhaenyra remains paramount, the brothers find themselves disarmed and resorting to brutal punches, signalling an imminent fight to the death. Arryk scrambles to retrieve a blade and he inadvertently exposes himself, providing an opening for the other to impale him. From what we know, Erryk does so, and with a profound sense of failure, a tearful Erryk, or Arryk, approaches Rhaenyra and plunges his own blade into his abdomen, collapsing lifeless at her feet. So with both dead, it displays the futility of the vengeful mission assigned by Sir Criston Cole, resulting only in 2 more graves. And Rhaenyra, while safe for now, might have been a bit safer if Daemon was still by her side. So this brings us to the ending of episode 2, and we once again stress on the exhaustion and fractures on the other side of Westeros. Aegon's ruthless commands to hang all the rat catchers in the king's service, regardless of their involvement in Jaehaerys' murder, has left Otto furious and devastated. Innocent fathers, brothers and sons were sacrificed in this heartless act, erasing any goodwill that Jaehaerys' funeral had garnered for them. It was always clear that Otto's strategic approach would be overshadowed by Aegon's thirst for vengeance, but witnessing the clash between grandfather and grandson, portrayed brilliantly by Iphans and Glencarny, is truly a great moment in this episode. When Otto discovers that Criston had sent Arryk to kill Rhaenyra, it becomes the last straw for him, and such a reckless decision should have involved the entire council's input. Regardless of Otto's emotions, Aegon reminds him that Viserys appointed him as king, and Aegon immediately demands Otto's badge, emphasizing the need for a strong hand. In the process, Sir Criston is appointed as that new hand, but Otto defiantly throws his badge at his feet, warning Aegon of his regret. Later on, Otto confides in Alicent about his exile, and she advises him to negotiate with the Tyrells in Highgarden. And as they part ways, Alicent hints at her affair with Criston, with Otto dismissing it, saying that he doesn't want to know what it was. So with no compassion from her father, seeing her son struggle emotionally and feeling the true weight on her shoulders, Alicent takes out her frustration on Criston in private. But after slapping him and showing a dose of anger, it ultimately turns into another sexual encounter between them. So it looks like these two are going to indulge each other for a little while longer. Overall, it was another solid episode to the start of Season 2. I was happy that it addressed the 2 main issues I had with Episode 1, one being the pacing of the episode, and the other being some issues with supporting characters like Criston Cole. Episode 2 actually brought him more into the centre of the plot, and while, like many others, I still don't like the character, his role was definitely more important here. With 10 minutes of extra episode runtime, they were able to dedicate more scenes to these supporting characters and really smooth out the story points both at King's Landing and Dragonstone. It definitely feels like it's all building towards episode 4, which is titled A Dance of Dragons, and I think after episode 2, I'm definitely more on board with the editing transitions being made as we lead into that. However, coming back to Criston Cole, I will say that the whole affair between him and Alicent is something that still isn't working for me, and it feels like their pairing is a bit shallow. This apparently isn't in the Fire and Blood books, so if they are going to continue to showcase it, then I hope it has some added turns. At the minute, there's no extra value in watching them make the same decisions again and again, especially if it's just for the sake of keeping sex in the show. But I will reserve some judgment and see if it has other angles to it in the weeks ahead. But other than that, I did really enjoy this episode, and like many of the other great installments in the prequel series, the acting is once again sublime. This was really Glencarny's episode to shine even brighter than he did last week, giving us both sides to King Aegon in effective ways. There's many moments throughout the episode where he's basically Joffrey 2.0, but then there's a moment at the end where we see his humanity and guilt beneath that. It fits in line with how he was placed on the throne, who he was in Season 1, and then suggests a form of transition which we hadn't fully got with Joffrey in the parent show. And also, while Otto might be stepping down as Hand of the King, he was another character that stood out in the scenes he shared with Aegon, allowing us to see beyond the control he had over him. Like I said, it seems like it's all building up to episode 4, and if the quality is maintained and we work up to that successfully, then I think Season 2 can be just as strong as the first season. But that was my breakdown and analysis for House of the Dragon Season 2, Episode 2. I do hope this breakdown helped some of you guys understand the events and smaller details a bit better, and overall, I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts on the episode, so don't forget to let me know down below in the comment section. I will be covering every new episode of House of the Dragon Season 2, so keep a lookout for whenever I post and make sure you don't miss any of it. For more videos on House of the Dragon and the Game of Thrones spin-off shows, then subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications. Also, if you enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like rating and follow me on social media via the links in the description. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I've been Cortex, and as always, make some noise.